I put a counter black slash white themed as when I say counter, it's to roles with a breaching method that has you guys this as black white themed international law names, or the difference of avert criminal enterprise terrorists because criminally foreign influence nature and news at the same time. The campus's database identities of relativity roles, names next to all natures of crime scenes, parks, things good, bad, everything. We are in a trap. Why and how the suburbs look almost exactly like in America, in Russia, and Ukraine, even though they were designed the torture, extortion, and slavery of our founders, fact, human nature, therefore physically. This is debated, and when you guys debate such, A through Z, you're changing and faking what people say, and self-valuing collusions, right with the campuses used to replace the short words that nature and then our founders actually wanted and needed us to have to get defended at last at these locations. Instead, involved with mixed natures of organized crimes and the difference of that, and with the differences like boy or girl, how this breaching method uses that differences too. It uses appreciation of it. Today, you guys can't defend that and afford not to self-value roles with wire crime acts and methods, mail crime acts and methods that police families and courts have involvements with in foreign countries at the same time. For example, as part of the ways we can show predicate acts with facts, what forgiveness is about. Not to leave out the breaching methods roles with this. Witch trials, even if witch trials were made up, regardless who made up, what was made up for, what extent. Witch trials are about the breaching method laws that were entrenched. And if we appreciated that and what we know about that, true all ways, we would have noticed it since modern religious messengers came about. And demonstrably, the nature of the debate regarding such. It says at the beginning of the Old Testament, for example, doesn't someone not for faith, for the nature of the debate. I'm sure how it's relative, it's relevant. Same too. In other words, it says at the beginning of the Old Testament, it says only defend this part right here. It doesn't say defend whatever chapter what or verse what. It says only defend right here, where the names of the people, the sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. In other words, and two, the Old Testament and the Quran also has a part that both the people who attack the Quran and the people defending the Quran are collusions recorded, used remotely, not letting people appreciate that first part properly or even know about it, where it says all that matters. Per my transliteration, it says all that matters is that if someone's honest about what they're going to call the name of all the scientific value too of all space slash existence, and it also qualifies that person. I mean, obligates the person if they do believe that they should call it, and that it should be named Allah, that they should also not pray in a mosque for the slightest reason. In other words, what's true always is supposed to lead. It is a distinct identity of volume that is functional, being hyper invisible but still discernible, distinctly from how it is all things too. So therefore, all things invisible but still discernible, as the parts of speech of English grammar, as that part of all physical identities, even if they're things made up like art. It is an identity of possession over all parts, finite, grouped, and progressive. But per it's progressive with relative in time. It's treatments of time slash forever nature and forever nature slash time. as a quality of diffusion that comes with increasing demonstration slash S with every subject that we could grapple with, or you know, or or I don't. It doesn't. I shouldn't use the word grapple. The phrase. I mean, anyway, there are three natures of time that we know they're showing us the value of seasons that have not even come yet. But it's showing us also not to value. Okay, this is coming. The spring's coming. That's true, but now it's the systems of it, even the clothing. You know what people are going to do with the resources, what they call resources, what they call values. They're never stopped being black white collusion slash S with use slash S of collusion slash S. We are every campus sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too. You guys are collusion with people from off those campuses, but also hyper additionally the difference of it at the campuses and hyper additional motivation each roles with that, including the campuses that are training the teachers of it. There are a whole bunch of people from Central Connecticut State University have roles on a whole bunch of campuses. They wouldn't have to stay criminally foreign influence if you guys would follow mandated law. Like WFSB has me in fake conversations with them and with the intelligence involved with them and how they're involved with them through time, intercities, and distinctly from Fox Connecticut News, the same thing, and both of them with names next to them through time. Involved with predicate acts on my street from other areas since I was a kid, with people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them. I never even had a class with them. They want to try to make fake exceptions outside because they have roles with prosecutors, judges, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of different countries, their family members at the same time. This breaching method shows them how they hide their roles: mass identity theft, fraud, slanders, collusions with predicate acts with facts, falsified police reports, all kinds of rackets with and methods with that, where they falsify the police reports, switch names, put a charge with no writing, and then God knows what they put into the database is probably a whole array. And they do this intercities that are connected. Then they lie about what they think about what we say. And then they cover that up by putting more fake transcripts. Intercities and intracities, the same ones interstates, world rolls with Washington names and with World Trade Center names who had roles with the attack. And since to hide that, same ones that influenced former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members, involved with a whole bunch of people with predicate acts next to WFSB, or also roles and have been roles with Wethersfield schools, Rocky Hill schools, Newington schools, Hartford schools, New Britain schools. The difference of that between the campuses they're building on predicate acts with facts with a whole bunch of different countries and the people involved with the World Trade Center attack. WFSB is increasingly pretending other to at the same time they're recorded extorting me, torturing me, in fact, cheating nature, enslaving me, to say nothing about them. After the World Trade Center attack, they attached me with fake conversations with themselves and others about the World Trade Center. I was in the court next to the World Trade Center. I'm someone who really has to speak things. And I'm not going to speak with the Wethersfield police. They pretended they had conversations with me when I was a kid and then as an adult. And before the World Trade Center attack, I didn't know their names yet. And I don't know all their names. There's an Officer Hunter involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and New Britain Superior Court families, and ones tied to them, and ones with Hartford courts and Connecticut's District Court, who have been at West Hartford and New Britain locations, that were also involved with people that at the campuses I went to, that I didn't have classes with, who were involved with predicate acts and on all sides of my house. And I recorded how they're doing this on all sides of other people's houses. And I recorded it further then and now with more involved, way worse than they put the principal child abuser, upskirt nature in prison for. They were doing more digital crimes and foreign and domestic medical families, abuses of the kids they treat and of the kids they fake, conversations and treatments of, including with the news then when they're adults to hide that. All kinds of criminally foreign influence uses of the houses and businesses next to Harvard Hospital, involved with the Harvard Hospital's Institute of Living, also with people with lawyer scams and legal scams, all kinds of natures of organized crime with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the family members of fire departments and the family members. In other words, and the houses next to them, and other natures of campuses, exception nature on the ground is many ways manifest, most so to suit the human fact human nature breaching method. That is really why and how. That replaced from the communications of our founders, no, not the ones who had to be counter extorted as the final third. And the first third is Native Americans pure. The second third is Native Americans coupled with James Madison as James Madison and his plan. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to use that plan. And then the third is the rest of the founders. They had to force their key positions. And then to have no means to defend themselves were already extorted, tortured, enslaved. But to fight on the course to freedom, to get the Constitution unabridged at last, and appreciating hyper simultaneously, that why and how. We have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. We see we have the nature debate contains quality aspects of nature itself. Used remotely criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence. I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers all sides of criminal and civil cases. That and the court's name. This which trials are about. Even they were made up. They're about slavery at the same time, and by uses of the such things, where the breaching method measures and maintains such simultaneous things as hyper evidential left out, replaced. You guys are worse than brainwashing the kids and tricking them, as collusions too, screening further and further, making more apparent and real motivations with syntax and regarding a perception of what really caused, for example, the American Revolution. Why and how George Washington had to come to Hartford, Connecticut, and to Wethersfield, Connecticut, and had to leave, for example, slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies, and then states too, beyond his presidency, beyond his lifetime. In other words, it's because we're in a semi-ancient trap. /S, A through Z countries too, all groupings of humanity. The trap knew it already invested people only capable as location areas of states, even any grouping of countries. They would have to blame other things, others themselves, and or value that being while valuing that having been. And therefore, they would have to not realize being capable of using or affording to be, let alone to protract, short words with convictions proper by the sciences. And that means with that a nature of love and care for every other human and thing. Relative to fact treatment nature, quality aspects of nature, premises treatments, evaluation of such. See, it made all subject treatments used by a breaching method that has self-value rules with the uses of our founders' words, leaving out what they communicated about the breaching method that was measuring and maintaining what everyone said. Collusions with its breaching method, its torture, extortion, slavery method. It means the human volume science. It's speaking for humanity as systems tactical terror while pretending other. So increasingly incapable of defending that and of affording discern all the ways that nature was showing. And our founders really wanted to need us to show, let alone ourselves, and our lineage. Because, in other words, people not founders, even presidents are a certain type of victim / hyper victim. President / chief, no. And one third, in other words, thank God everybody can't help but be, to an extent, hyper-native pure. In other words, so is president / chief, three natures of volume. And they are present as the greater identity of any individual voice, any leader. But see, we have had all voicings for humanity that with those qualities, aspects, nature since before computers rose with that method that kept internationally monitored conversations and laws as that were crazy against every single person, entrenched, and rolls with that sustained. And while that was going down, use / S of it, sicker than anything that happened in any modern war, is also the cause of it. But rather than do this, they keep the people the nature debate with differences. How this is perpetrated is relative to how the people with like from my grammar school that I never had conversations with are needing to pretend other. They're changing and faking what's recorded now. And they did so with the principal child abuser, increasingly two retired police chiefs and their intimate ties and their family members involved in the same house, slammed one time to them with predatory wire crimes, mail crimes, all kinds of natures of violence to people from other areas involved with it, including other people, police forms associated with ones named tomorrow increasingly, as ones involved with them, and people that have roles of my past neighbors with them, forced to a collusion with untimely death. They don't even know, too. They just attach everyone to fake and change the communications with themselves and with everyone around them. In other words, and then they keep that sustained. Then they have roles, and they want to have nature debate to duck behind, because the breaching method showed them how to do that. But it also keeps needing to duck behind that. It is why and how the suburbs again too are manifest the way they are, even though the colonists wanted and needed means to make it safer, better. Since before cars, they built it. In other words, we have unity and we have independence to appreciate tactical terror from how we are forced to appreciate with that which is forced to entertain differences, including the difference of someone of employment or not, or what nature of employment. In other words, or that there's a difference there. In other words, we're supposed to be led by the hyper invisible. We're supposed to be leaving out the smallest finite detail. There are whole predicate acts with facts, methods, collusion / S, and selves against selves too. Especially concentrated at each location, sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly. And there are means to discern it better in different ways from each spot, clearer than day. The suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions acts. Nature's clearer than day. There are whole predicate acts, concentrated human fact achieving nature breaching method, singular, stayed methods, roles, only allowed to be fathomed. Specifically, so if anyone notes it, it brings a quality of fact achieving nature that requires use by correlation, use by where and how there are those collusions with differences that the three branches of government have at the same time with all sides of criminal and civil cases and the news. and the foreign subsidized countries, except at the same time. This is what we're discerning when we discern that black people's whites of eyes, having that and having had it left out too. And I'll see the whites of eyes. In other words, it's not a game, a contest. It's not something you chip away at as black and white in sense for the breaching method, because black and white put that together. Black and white. In other words, there are proofs that mountains were taken down to make countries A through Z not remember history, to make it stay longer, to delay how before nature would show us. The sciences were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded from off their locations to defend themselves. Also at those locations, hyper additionally for additional reasons to hide behind, but also, criminally foreign influence, factory nature, quality aspects, nature, and collusion as collusion/S at the same time with those hyper additional things. With the collusions part is relative to the all that tied to where and how we can observe not only the breaching method replaced as a scientific value inside the communications of America's founder, but use/S of it and roles A through Z. Otherwise, we are sensed, including if we are a body as a group, a majority, or as everyone together, including if it's a grouping of countries, as long as they're entertaining locations, areas, and states. Factory nature syntax, therefore function, nature, as is. In other words, a lot of people have made a lot of money on inventions. We already know about how to make water and energy from that, and store it. And then just even if it was for emergency, all kinds of ways that computers aren't safe. And, in other words, and involved with programming that can't afford, and syntax litigation, courts, rules, use of location S/S2, all natures of identity of difference. They made themselves out of roles to hide behind by this breaching method. Think how sick it was to have the colors with the black and white, and still, too, what nature communicates about that with black people's whites of eyes. That left out, replaced. What our founders communicated about this, we're supposed to see the whites of eyes in the nature debate. If someone said, we're supposed to allow a nature debate. If someone said, well, maybe it's also cipher, because all the databases were criminally foreign influence. There were laws against every single person that were equivalent as torture, extortion, and slavery laws against every single person, even our founders, even the Native American founders. And that had already been sustained before Columbus sailed the ocean blue. There are proofs. This breaching method deciphered what our founders left us to decipher first, though. It deciphered it before we did. And it keeps self-value roles at location/S with use/S of our founders' words, for example, as the experts on American history, as the names of the people of the sciences used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, as a certain type of victim/hyper victim. Forgiveness is about. Otherwise, we miss how the breaching method has everyone, the difference of them guilty or everyone else using, or more than the doctors, more than the scientists, more than this guy has a book. We have black people's whites of eyes. We're going to have to learn how to appreciate the hyper-evidential, because nature is teaching us about the hyper-evidential. We're going to have to learn to appreciate the hyper-peace, because nature is showing us the difference between criminal and citizen's natures of peace and hyper-peace. We're going to have to appreciate the difference between criminal and citizen's natures of truth and of facts and of motivations for the uses of them. Because motivation screening is also increasingly needed by the breaching method. that has, again, nature itself, increasingly demonstrating to us a human fact should be nature breaching method is one of the things true always. That the value the laws that were forced on everyone formerly were value as originally and still. And for the causes of it, even when there are proper answers here and there, the all exceptions are demonstration of the same thing. It's a breaching method. That's why the suburbs are manifest since the way they were before cars were built. So they all strength and might, all nature of unity and independence. All it did was built, damage control. Everyone came through campuses A through Z. Every syntax, nature, all pace. Forgiveness is to keep the focus blamed on the hyper foreign and to bring forward a new nature of industries and pantheism as we could use. And we can have it breathe. We could do, we have to do this in a way that looks at where there are wars and goes on like that. But we're going to be led by the hyper invisible, but still discernible. We're not going to make any convictions, but just that we know that that's where the wars are going down. Okay, Iran, there's impositions to go for nuclear weapons. That means everyone has to keep their mouth shut because they have water. They have to keep constantly getting cooled, even for the nuclear, even for cities now with peaceful stuff. So everyone's in a trap sickly distinctly, and no one knows how to communicate with that properly because everyone's also having been people that were supposed to keep their mouth shut for all kinds of reasons. The same things we hear, humbleness they like, or keep mouth shut. And then the only aggression is black or white collusion /S. Latino themed inter and intracultural collusion /S. With criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw natures of industry. Natures of passions and emotions, and natures of debate regarding that, which can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to project. Honesty regarding all that comes with having black people's rights of eyes. And that left out. And the other species' bodies having two eyes, no. In other words. And we didn't invent that. And they didn't invent that. In other words, we have the short words for little kids changed and faked. And they have self-value roles and they get away with it because they have a sense and sensibility. This breaching method plays and played that. It knew sickly distinctly the Democrats and the Republicans. It showed them how to defend their treatments of their differences, like the differences of the branches of government too, at locations, areas, and states. Relative to this, you can't treat that properly. You can't do anything properly until we get the nature of debate proper, and with regarding black pupils, whites of eyes, and how we were supposed to remember a famous line: "Don't shoot until you see the whites of eyes." Increasingly, the people who had roles of the World Trade Center attack as both sides, and there's a hyper foreign. It's not just the groups; if the groupings are involved, like whatever groupings of humanity, they have been voiced and used, valued as systems tactical ulterior from how we are a species body of individual bodies, with all group differences being generated. And with the revelations that come with this, how there is one identity of hyper invisible but still discernible, that is also conjunctive to all parts of invisible but still discernible, like all subjects and parts of speech of English grammar and of other languages. The identity of all space /existence is inseparable from all parts of the invisible but still discernible. That is real. Even anything made of, even the art, its volume size, the same one is there. It is the difference of the order of the finite, or the four smallest finite detail. Thank you. I forgot what that I titled the video.